The memorialization is forever.
Here's Johnny. Thank you. Well, hello there, social media family. Being of any persons among yourselves, being of whom are from my subscribers to even so visitors who are supposedly themselves affiliated or associated with and are representing my own particular YouTube social media channel and likewise chat room or comment section. Although not as much as any subscribers who would be much more legitimately, officially affiliated or associated with and are representing some of such of the same of the said in question and or likewise the aforementioned. Then because until more visitors were to, like say, possibly and are finally subscribe so that, those persons to be considered otherwise can or could be, upgraded to a much greater status and would not be just so much as to be considered as being by mere means of hearsay or as they would put it within a court of law circumstantial, whereas you would literally actually be officially as some such. So until then, I cannot really give any props to any visitors to it, compared to how I would have to give greater respect to my subscribers. And being which should prove to have become or be a no-brainer as in self-explanatory. But then, if you are a visitor, please don't come off like some kind sort of type of an internet troll character who could more than practically as in possibly remind me of or have me remember or reflect and or recollect upon some such matters, how certain neighbors of the likes who attempt to harass, intimidate, and persecute or terrorize and or traumatize still other neighbors for the likes of their kind. Then the former, who would be much more commonly called and or likewise much more commonly known as the likes being the proverbial neighbors from damn hell characters among public nuisances or problem neighbors, well, whatever I ever said. No, please don't come on my page or channel or in my chat room or comment section if you're just a visitor and you want to even so be Mr. or Miss Chatterbox or Mr. or Miss Mouthy if you have not as yet subscribed, and how much less should you think of it with a mind's intentions to come off like some kind sort or such a type of an internet troll character. Then it comes from there, and until I were to feel comfortable with appointing somebody else to become or be my second in command as a moderator with all of the full capacity authority to be ascribed to one's status as that being of the same, the same question or aforementioned, then I will be serving as some such to take care of all the necessary business at hand, you know, until I were to feel comfortable with appointing another person to become or be a moderator for my own particular channel and or likewise chat room conversation, whereas a moderator would silence, annoying chats, and if need be, if a person were to come off like a character that much more, then one would, take care of necessary business, then in which I would otherwise do, to take actions further by blocking one from my channel, and I would hate for that to happen because I don't like to have somebody blocked, but if it proves to become or be necessary, then that most certainly or definitely is an alternative option, because it would defeat the reason or purpose for my having established that being the same with the administrative representative personnel, because I don't want my own particular domain that I'm the sole owner thereof, I ever said, to become uncomfortable for anybody else as well as for myself, God forbid, for somebody else to attempt to use my platform for that being of their own, or to make it out to become their soapbox, or that being a dumping ground for all of their negativity. It's not happening. And if you are a visitor, and though you may not come off like an internet troll character, but yet you have not, gone about showing your loyalty to my channel and or to me being a my person, by subscribing, if you have not done so as yet. And I would prefer that a person would do that after, like say, the first couple of few visits to my channel. Otherwise, you're just setting yourself up to be given walking papers by me. Because if you're a visitor to that being the same and you have not subscribed after the first, second, or third visit to my channel, then you never know, at some given moment in time or another, whenever you could be like making like with the chatterbox so much, and you don't have the rights and privileges to do so, like a subscriber, who is more officially to be considered as a member of my social media family, then you never know if and when I could have a mind to not only silence your chat, but then furthermore, from there, if need be, if it could possibly become or be a case or situation that would prove necessary, then I could block you from my channel, as if you were coming off like a person, coming off like a character otherwise as an internet troll. And moving right along. And whereas tonight's or the present social media broadcast being as it is of some such video content material, so I say and I'll state for the record, now that I got the preliminaries out the way so far as the icebreaker and etc. and salutation and greeting and whatever. And as I think of it with that in my mind's attention, try to backtrack your reason for this being, in order so I can go on to continue from where my person at last left off, so I can finish up as a completed form of previous prior line of thought. and going on with the following, or as I try to think of it with a mind's intention to do so now, and without any further delays. Whereas, yes, I apologize for that if it has been any, but as you all know, so I interject before I go on and explain what the present social media broadcast video content material is supposed to be about. Some of such that is involving concerning regarding make a reference to or whatever, and to complement the name title for this particular one. Any delays to it would be the results of developments of certain neighbors, as I mentioned earlier, proverbial neighbors from down hell, especially if they are the likes who be coming off like they are moonlighting as other characters, like some of such who would greet a lady in a lounge atmosphere, and then when she is herself is not looking, slip a roofie or a Mickey in one's drink or beverage of intoxicating alcoholic content. And so this here is the case of situation where certain neighbors of the likes that I have now in one of the less preferred neighborhoods, if you know what I mean, read between lines, fill in the blanks, as in to be translated, we define as meaning, a bad neighborhood, one that is more impoverished, more poverty stricken, and likewise, not to mention, or let alone, more crime ridden, whereas the neighbors from down hell are worse yet. Some of the worstest ones where I'm at now for one of the worst or worstest of neighborhoods for the Vicente area community. Whereas these particular ones, some among them, hopefully not all of them, they have the habit of, putting knockout gas into other neighbors' units, atmospheres, places, in of apartments. Well, this one particular neighbor from down here who misbehaved, like one is attempting to replace my last main neighbor from down here. This one particular neighbor from down here who resides in the unit's atmosphere, place in the apartment above that of my own, misbehaves like one is attempting to replace my last main neighbor from down here who used to, pay annual monthly rent upon the same floor level plan here in the building, and whereas he himself was just a couple few apartment doors down from me, and as he himself is supposed to be of the likes or was one of the local Vicente area neighborhood community drug pushers and dope dealers, And I put it like that, being because for the simple reason being that whereas I'm being told one thing and another, one person telling me that he's supposed to be moved out from his apartment and gone elsewhere, whereas another person telling me that he think that he got popped with a poo-poo in the hand of a rival counterpart of his being of another male character of a drug pusher, or dope dealer. Or whereas another one for license can bust a cap of his skull for the back of his head, at the same time he himself could have possibly been about to bust a nut in his woman, like a party crasher, likes, as in another kind being of an intruder, home invader, while he's laid down with his woman, going for some sugar, about to bust a nut in her, whereas the rival drug pusher and dope dealer is standing behind one and bust a cap in his head just as he about to bust a nut in his woman. Ain't that something? So that's why I put it like that. He he is or was. Well, whatever the case is in our situation, this other neighbor from damn hell in the unit's atmosphere placed by an apartment above that of my own is misbehaving like one is attempting to replace him for whichever one's own gender is upstairs, And I suspect that this neighbor from down hell upstairs be pumping from knockout gas into my place of residence of unit atmosphere apartment to pumping other kind of gas, likewise, all the same of different sorts of types to keep me awake at night. And especially whenever I get on a computer, so far the knockout gas is concerned, whereas one could possibly attempt to make me become subject to experiencing that of identity theft. And I hate to think how one could possibly attempt to do some or such other to me once rendering me unconscious and, like say, without my knowledge as well as without my permission, without my consent. And then from there, while I'm up under, trespass my premises properties for whatever reason. So that's what was the delay for the broadcast, the present broadcast, because usually when I get on a computer, I find myself nodding out, regardless of whether or not I had gotten some sleep the night before, especially if I didn't, because it's something that one self could have done to cause me not to, and then from there to exacerbate the case and our situation or to complicate matter, compound the problem by giving me still some other kind of gas, as I was saying, from gas that would keep me awake to gas that would, have me nodding out or go to sleep much sooner than what I would choose. Yeah, as well as put other kind of knockout gas in my place to keep me awake, and I would want to go to sleep at normal hours. But the other gas would be a knockout gas to put me to sleep much sooner than I would choose to do so. Yeah, as I was saying. Anyway, and whereas the present social media broadcast, as it is, of some such video content material, and to complement the name title, is regarding and making reference to how, and as a backtrack here, the reason of purpose being, so I can go on to follow and continue for when my person last left off, so I can finish up as a complete form of previous prior lines off, and then the same since the word as I go on to following. Whereas the present social media broadcast is, in other words, dealing with how white people used to own blacks, mainly or mostly more than any other non-whites, and that's property, like as if they owning a pet dog or a cat. I mean, imagine that for those of you who may not know compared to others that do. I'm like, what? I mean, really now. I can understand if that would be gone about like in ancient times, like to the spoils go the victors. That is the spoils go to the victors. To the spoils go. The spoils go to the whatever. To pillage and plunder. But to think that there were modern slaves than just in ancient time. Modern slaves up until that in a much more obvious way at that. Up until what was it, the 1960s or 1970s? Then because slavery took on a different form than the much more familiar type, after the Emancipation Proclamation. Whereas it took on a form that would be called sharecropping. You know, where from there, the landowner of a white person would have to give, blacks some money to work their plantations or farms compared to how before then, they give them whatever they want to, you know. They look at it just as long as you got got a cabin to go to and a bed to lay down on, and food to put on your family's tables, you know, given to you by the supposed so-called whitey masters, then you should not have anything to worry about as a black person, with the exception of if you're a black male, if you cross the whitey master, himself could have you hanging from a tree. And if you're a black female, whereas the whitey master, depending on what one's, sexual urges or desires are, one could have his pick of the litter. That all depends, unless one is gay. And then from there get to raping black females at random. And that's like another civil war human rights violation offense. You know, that's even happening in these here modern times. Well, it was more prevalent before the civil rights movement, whereas that one thing and another, whereas as if a black male dared to give the supposed so-called whitey master of a white boy, an evil eye, then that was grounds to, horse whip a black brother, to whip him to death. Literally whip him to death or hang him. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. It's not. Hopefully, this one maybe from down here, it's not putting knockout gas in my place again. Because I'm going to have to find some kind of way to resolve the issue. We're getting back to some such other. Where was I at now? Yeah. So the sharecropping system was in operation, No, that wasn't. Well, last time, what was that? I was speaking on how white masters, if a black male slave before, you know, the civil rights movement, if a black male slave gave the whitey master, because you as a black male slave or a black female slave, you're not supposed to look the whitey master in the eyes. You're supposed to have your head bowed down and never look the whitey master or the whitey missus in the eyes when they're talking to you. And because they would consider that as a sign of disrespect. Like, Samson, don't you know that the Philistines rule over us? That was grounds to have you horse whipped, and depending on the case or situation, you could be killed for that. Yes. So, and then where's the whitey master? If he's feeling hungry for a black sister, regardless of whether or not that black sister would be already married, and get me to think about the old saying, something about Everybody runs when the rabbit has the gun. Then back then they had a system where a black slave could pay off the white master for his freedom, that his or her freedom, you know. Uh, uh, that would usually be a joke back then, because if if you were to become free and be gone on elsewhere, whereas certain white boys back then they didn't recognize a free black person. They would just kidnap you and put you back into black slavery. So what good would it have been to, yeah, but anyway, don't talk about them not again. Anyway, don't get back to something such as, and then well, I know you all have seen the movie Roots as well as the TV show series, the novel, regardless of whether or not some parts of it was plagiarized by another author of a white boy. Whereas that one was supposed to be called The African. And he claimed that Alex Haley had stole some of his written material and put it in his own book that he wrote. But Alex Haley had paid him thousands of dollars from there to settle it out of court. Yeah, but anyway, getting back to some such other. The only reason why I brought up that last mention, whereas at one time or another, you know, Kizzy Kunte, and whereas that movie and the TV show series were based on real life, actual events. At one time or another, Kizzy Kunte, Kunte being the daughter of Kunta Kinte, who was an African that was kidnapped from the motherland of Africa and brought to New World. At one time, Kizzy Kunte had learned how to write because Whitey Missy had taught her for some reason or another. I don't know what she was thinking, but anyway, Kizzy Kunte had forged paperwork documents to have a black male slave to travel through the country and to get free. And they caught up with him. The bounty hunters, the white boys, otherwise brought him back to the black slave plantation. And they whipped them, they horse whipped them to try to find out who had forged that note of a pass to travel throughout the country without the whitey master's permission. And it was found out that Kizzy Kunte was the one after they whipped the black brother. And then from there, she was sold by the whitey master to a different whitey master, whereas Kunta Kinte, her father, and her mother were pleading to the whitey master not to sell her. But then they were saying, if you sell her, then sell us with her, you know. But that wasn't to be the case. Anyway, though, once she had become the property of the other whitey master of a white boy, he would SA, as in sexually assault, rape, or molest her repeatedly upon a regular basis, you know. And Chicken George was the sibling offspring of that union between a black slave owner of a white boy and a black female slave being Kizzy Kunte. Now, yeah. Now, I was saying that ancient times, you know, one can understand how, you know, persons could become slaves, but still other persons. Because back in ancient times, they really didn't know much better. They didn't have so much intelligence as modern people, modern persons. You know, yeah. But for that to have taken place to happen, you know, in modern times, up until even so the 1960s, you know, with the sharecropping that had replaced the much more familiar slavery. I mean, it's no wonder that of all races of peoples, persons, that blacks from generation to generation after that, all that, have been, you know, greatly traumatized. And, you know, and whereas one argument is the reason why blacks can't make as much progress as other races of people's persons, because they always have the evil eye for one another. Yeah, you can look at it from that point of view, but then you must also look at it from another. Why do they have the evil eye for one another? Because back then, you know, it was like black slaves were competing for the favors of whitey master, you know, and to get a better status upon the black slave plantations so that their human existence could be prolonged and to be cut short, you know, even if it meant, you know, tricking on another black slave who with others were contemplating a plan to escape the black slave plantation. You know, it was a similar case of situation so far as that last mention when it comes to that of a nature and Dugan in reference to the cousins of blacks being of the white Jewish cousins to the black Hebrew Israelite, whereas during their own horrific chronicle history of the Holocaust, there were certain white Jewish persons who would, you know, collaborate with the enemy. And, you know, they were called capos, whereas they were turncoats. They were traitors. I don't want to say Benedict Arnold, because Benedict Arnold, I don't think he was so much of a traitor during the American colonial days. That all depends. But I really don't. I mean, I have mixed feelings about that. But anyway, though, because they had become the traitors, like the traitors among blacks would be much more scorned and despised. So were the white Jewish. I forgot the name of them. I'm sorry, I'm not that again. Like I said, I didn't get much of any sleep last night. I'm just feeling kind of up on the weather. Have to pay another visit to a local Centenary neighborhood community medical facility of some such hospital, regardless whether or not I would have to do follow up at a clinic auxiliary. But anyway, though, and then I'm about to close out anyway. Yeah. So, for white persons to be holding blacks back then as, you know, slaves in a much more obvious, evident kind of way, you know, it just makes me want to vomit, you know. But then you know, if a if a black male slave were to get mouthy to the white master, well, the black female slave would not be the only one that could possibly get raped by the white master. There was a form of raping black males being the ones that were to go about contesting the authority of the white boys, the white master back then. Whereas from there, the white master would have him, hog tied to the ground with his legs spread. And then the whitey master would get on top of him between his legs and then get to, doing him doggy style. And have all the other black slaves watch from adults or grown-ups to children to send a message that if a black male slave were to, be rebellious against the authority of the white master, then that could happen to oneself like so. Ain't that disgusting? Nowadays, yeah. But then, when you get to thinking about it, regardless of how there is little, very little, if any, much more obvious and evidential, much more familiar black slavery or sharecropping for that matter. But then it's like, you can still see traces of it, but in a much more subtle way. I mean, when black males are some such as the first to be headhunted by racist redneck white boys to be hanged from trees, and black females are that much more than other races of females to be raped by the whitey master white boys. Then it's like slavery never left, never become kaput, as the German would say. It's still an operation, it's just more subtle. The destruction of black families, etc. Anyway, though, on this last note of interest, I'd like to say that is, if you have not got Christ as your own personal Lord and Savior, I hope that you would think to do so now, while the blood is still running warm and bathed, by recognizing that what he himself had done and did upon cross Calvary, something at the hands of Roman soldiers up from the orders of their superiors, being man, religious Pharisees and Sadducees. Then, nevertheless, when we went to that cross Calvary, become the perfect sacrifice, the only sacrifice for you as well as for me. Don't steal my trademark, physical justice. I had copyright sometime. This one risk be plagiarized. Where so if any of us, regardless of race, walk life, gender, age, and instead of word to profess faith in him, from there we become and be blessed in one God another, in more ways one. First and foremost, with his salvation, after recognizing what Christ had done on the cross Calvary to fulfill biblical prophecy, to die at the hands of Roman soldiers upon the orders of their superiors, being more so or main or mostly religious Pharisees, as he was nailed on cross Calvary between two thieves. First of all, we blessed with his salvation and become citizens of the kingdom of heaven. Then second of all, we'll be blessed with his deliverance. But first you have got to get his salvation, otherwise you have nothing coming. Once you make that transition for the great beyond and hereafter, afterlife. If you have not got Christ's salvation, your final destination will become the lake of fire down hell, where you will be assembled with the rest of the unsaved, lost down human souls, of non-believers, the unbelievers, be tortured and terrorized by the devil and demons, compared and be burning forever. There, compared to how we as believers, God will be across the great divide that separates heaven from hell, and the coming of life, man, believers in the presence of God and his angels. Even so, be blessed down here upon the planet earth, and hopefully become or be a blessing on to another, others that much more, by sharing with them the gospel message of salvation of our Lord and Savior Christ, so that they too can also escape the fires of the lake of fire down hell and become citizens of the kingdom of heaven. Y'all take care and be safe, be blessed, not stress if and when you can, or could possibly become a member of the household of faith, found in God. And I will talk to you later. And we're out. Peace.